until she gets here. So we'll start with privilege of the floor. Howard, would you like to say something?
Sure.
Please
Well, I have a
state
question.
who you are for the record.
Howard Abramson, Mountain Brook, actually president of the association, not that that matters, if you're representing myself. Corcoran Pond, there are some fecal contamination issues. Really kind of curious as to how we up here end up. We had a boil water issue not so long ago. Now suddenly we have a pond with fecal contamination. Are all the single-family houses up there not connected to the town sewage system?
Well, you're talking, which item are you talking about? Corcoran's Pond or the water system?
Let's talk Corcoran Pond. The water system has history.
Corcoran's Pond, there are no homes that border Corcoran's Pond.
Well, where is the fecal contamination coming from?
The ducks.
It's probably, well, no, it's probably the fact that we had a drought condition, so we had a low water condition. Our best estimate right now is that the runoff, rock material from the forest into the pond, and it resulted in higher than normal E. coli levels. It could be exacerbated by the ducts. It could be exacerbated by the temperature of the water being warm. We've had a pretty warm summer. It could be exacerbated by people swimming in the pond. It's not specifically fecal matter. It is E. coli, which can come from any biological source. It doesn't have to be. The third time, I think, in those 18 years that we've had to post the pond. We did not prohibit swimming, but we just cautioned people that they were swimming at their own rates. So, because there were elevated amounts of E. coli. Within the past 10 years, for sure. Two times in the last 10 years.
Do you want to weigh in on how many times we've closed Corcoran's Pond for E. coli and what the possible source
Yeah,
could be
we
from
test it
public
every
safety?
year, and it's been a couple of years in the past 8 to 10 years that we've.
Yeah.
And how often do we test the pond?
It's twice a season, I think, 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times a year.
It's on the state schedule.
The state is the one, they test all public access points across the state, and they give us the fact we're going to come and test you 2 or 3 times this summer, and then they tell us.
So this E. coli could have been there for quite a while. We didn't know that until it was a mandated test, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
Scheduled
Yeah.
test.
The schedule is based on the season and when it's most
I know.
likely there.
To be used,
Yeah.
right. And most likely to be E. coli.
When you fail a test, does the inspection period change? Is
No.
there now going to be increased inspection on the rest of the year?
Well, they continue to test to be able, they test weekly now to be able to tell us when we can remove the notice symbols. And if you know, we've taken those down because the tests that we had on Monday came back Tuesday, and it was below the acceptable E. coli limit, and we could take the signs down. So we're back under the mandatory.
With our drinking water, it's a totally different.
It's a totally.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
see, as somebody who lives on Snow's Brook,
Mhm.
which is the runoff from Corcoran Pond,
That's right.
I'm more than a little concerned. So I just want to make sure I understand this. It's the town's position that a bear crapping in the woods is what managed to ruin up.
Yeah.
So the rain that brought the bacteria, then more rain then reduced the bacteria.
That's correct, because as you get a flushing of the pond, that it actually lowers the amount of E. coli that is there. Dilution of, yeah. So it's.
You remember the old pipe that was out when you came to town, people were filling their bottles with until someone tested the water? Do you remember that?
Yeah, sure.
And that water was just filthy.
It's surface water.
That's
So,
it.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I'm curious, are there any houses in Waterville Valley that are not connected to the central sewage system?
Sewage, yes.
Oh, yeah,
So there are septic fields,
There are.
and no one's concerned that any of this is run off
not even.
No.
wells.
homeowner septic fields.
No, there's a specific radius where septic systems are not allowed near the wells.
In fact, we
No,
have
I'm going back to Corcoran Pond, I'm not talking about.
Nothing near Corcoran's Pond.
nothing near Corcoran's Pond and nothing
Nothing on that.
near our water sources, our water supply sources.
Or on the, or
That
on
are-
the drainage,
or in the
or on the
drainage.
drainage
That's right.
for Snowsbrook.
That's right.
That's interesting. Well, I'll take that advisement. I'm gonna do a little research on my own. As long as I have the floor. Scooters on our pedestrian and bicycle paths,
Electric or push scooter?
electric.
Okay.
I didn't think that motorized vehicles were allowed on paths.
Chris?
I don't, what paths and what,
Well, they go by my word about 25 miles an hour, so.
Are they the resort boards or are they
Yeah,
private?
they're rental boards from our good friends in
I
town
don't,
square.
I don't think they're restricted from that.
Really? So I could ride my scooter, my gasoline powered scooter on the paths? I'll make sure I got that right. Motorized vehicles are allowed on the paths.
Not gas vehicle, electric ones certainly are, golf carts and anything. But I think we would question if someone had a gas powered engine going up and down.
But you wouldn't question electric, like a Tesla. The Tesla would be
If
okay?
you want to drive your Tesla on there,
Well, I'm trying to understand what our parameter, I'm not,
I think it's the
It's not sure
internal combustion engine in the woods is the issue, correct?
Right.
Shooting out a spark off and setting a fire.
but not running people over.
No, well, that's
That's
maybe-
not a problem.
Maybe we've entered into a new age where should be looked at.
Yeah.
Mountain bikes can go just as fast as they pick up at speed.
Yeah, they can,
And
and
horses.
I have some questions about that too, but I wanted to start with what I thought was the easy one, which was
Right now,
people
there's
who don't even know how to
nothing.
operate an electric scooter suddenly flying by.
Right now, there is no,
Right
now,
there's- according to our public safety officer, right now, there's no prohibition on electric scooters on the trails.
Probably because we've never,
We've
now
never-
they've got those ones,
Yes,
so.
the one wheels and the.
There was no
resort
prohibition on
boards are
drones
new,
yet
so-
either.
Right.
Well, I guess I would suggest.
We haven't
perhaps
caught
the
up
board
with the
should
tech.
Consider some steps to
Well,
protect the rest of us.
propose it, get 10 people to agree with you, and we'll put it on the ballot.
Just wanted to make sure that I thought that by rights, motorized vehicles were prohibited except emergency.
that's, yeah, I mean, that's nothing that we've ever dealt with.
No.
There's no rules for that green belt.
Right,
That-
they
That's
have to get
correct.
special permission on where they can and can't go with those boards, from the Forest Service. And it does, there are some turnarounds where they can't take the boards,
Right.
but the rest was permitted.
But as far as town-owned property, there are no regulations that say they
Right,
can't.
Forest
do it.
Service land, they cannot.
Forest Service land, they are controlled by the Forest Service. So once they get across the bridges
So the
Right.
town owns the dog path from the pond to the
bridge.
entrance to Mad River Trail or
No,
the first
to-
bridge?
To the bridge, to the
First
second bridge, to
So
the,
not the
big-
Snowsbrook.
the big bridge,
Big bridge.
the big,
So it's ours from the big bridge, it's an L up
That's
to Corcoran
correct.
Pond.
that's correct. And all the way down here to the back of the sewer treatment plant, that's also town. Right, around,
Has no one
corner
else
there.
raised this with you guys?
No.
no,
No, we're befuddled.
Interesting. Okay, well, I guess that's the difference between somebody who lives here and somebody who just visits, so perhaps.
No, you're the first person on that it affects. There's, I can see where you live and see be affected by it, but a lot of people aren't affected as you are. So it's something if you want to propose, we'll certainly listen.
Well, it's forced us to block off
Yeah,
that
no,
part of
I-
our
I-
property that had been sort of turned into an alternate trail. So we've put some fence posts up now.
But is it your property or is it the town property?
It's not our property, we walked it, we
their
walked
property,
it
they
together.
walked it.
Okay, just want to.
It's our property, but it had become the sort of Y. It's not a Y. The trail comes along the river.
Is it your intent to leave that up in the winter? also?
Absolutely,
I just.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Then I guess we'll move on. Is there anything else on the agenda except the sign? All right. Mark, why don't you walk us through where we are? I'm there, but I know Rich
Yeah,
isn't,
yeah.
so I know.
Actually, I had a meeting with Mark to
Okay.
discuss it.
So you understand what our option is?
Yes, I,
So,
And our
and we
option.
talked at the planning board today.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
and the town core working group has had a couple of meetings about it, so I think we're all understanding that the bids that came back, when you combine the sign, the engineering, and the road work, that number exceeds $250,000, which is our maximum budget for the project in total. We have spent somewhere around $30,000 to $35,000 or so dollars so far between bills that we have actually paid and work that the sign company has done but has not billed us for. That's our estimate right now. When the road back to the contractor and ask the contractor to give us a price for just doing work associated with installing the sign, so that we had the site work done and the sign company could come in and put the sign. And if you look at the budget page that I gave you, this page, that is the summary, the adjusted budget column, including a $10,000 contingency, lays out those costs. So if you subtract the 126,100 from the 250 available budget, it leaves the balance of 123,900. The Town Core Working Group is recommending, after their last meeting, and chime in anytime you want, is recommending to install do the site work and install the sign, and hold off doing any of the road work and the pedestrian path associated with this part of the project. And then we can figure out what to do going forward. As a discussion of the other numbers down there at the bottom was our estimate at this point in time of what we would have to put in for next year to get the road work done associated with this project.
Unless if we put it out for bid.
Unless we put it out to bid again, and then we would have a different number.
Competitive bids.
And I have talked to the contractor and said, if we reduce the scope of this project to just the sign work, are you willing to just do that, and then we'll put the road back out to bid? And he said yes. He would. That's what the 42,000 is.
I'm just trying to text
No,
Margaret
I'm
to see if
fine.
she's here.
Yeah,
So,
she is
I
in
guess-
town. She was in the office.
She dropped something off
Yeah,
I'm
earlier,
just
yeah.
wondering if she's asleep from the time.
Yeah, she may.
Oh,
She might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we are right now.
We feel that it's very important to keep this moving. That instead of putting it all off again for another year, that would not be good for the project or good for the town. And there's a possibility that maybe we can bundle the road work in with other projects, which would help reduce the price on the actual road work. Having only one bid on that was kind of
We're
disappointing,
being
but it's what it
hamstrung by
was.
the one bid.
But I don't know how realistic that's going to be going forward to bundle projects and getting them done in a reasonable time with a reasonable cost. I'm not against going forward with the sign and all that, but I just think that that proposal there, in a perfect world, it makes sense. It's a great idea. But if we start bidding stuff that's 5 or 6 years out, we might be bidding with contractors that don't exist. And the costs, we can't expect people.
Well, no, we're not saying that, Mike. We're not saying to do that. We're
But if we're
saying
gonna
to
bundle,
design.
if we're gonna bundle and do design on stuff and start getting bids to really plug in budget numbers, there's gonna be a significant lag between getting the budget numbers and actually doing projects.
But hopefully only a year.
A year or two, but things change in a year or two. I'm not saying no at all to the idea, like just, you know, in a perfect world, it would be great if we could do this and we could bundle 10 projects, get all the engineering done, and get the money to do them coming up at one point. I don't know how realistic it is. You know, I'm seeing a fire engine, I'm seeing some other stuff. I'm seeing this pond project, which I just, you know, don't know what's going to happen with it. So in theory, it's a great way to go.
Yeah, I understand it's tough with the whole ponds looming over the town, but it does seem like we're constantly in a state of hurry up and
Right.
hopefully get a connection with someone who can get it done in this 2-month time frame. Which, you know, the more I think about it, the more it is we're making it harder for ourselves than it needs to be, and paying more in the process.
Right, so that distinguishes the issue of bundling with the issue of timing. So by doing the sign but not the road work and getting that out for next year, we're much more likely to get more bidders simply because we'll be the first in line.
Mhm.
We're gonna do it in the spring and we're gonna give them plenty of time
Right.
to plan for this project.
I mean, we had the three, as we've told you, we've had the three contractors who were interested in the project, but 2 of the 3 already had work lined up and couldn't meet our timeline, so they didn't even bid.
No.
So we're
Responding.
here today to get approval and a vote from the selectmen to
Go ahead with the
proceed on
project.
this, on
Well, the sign,
phase
the
one
sign.
of this.
Brian, what do you think, Rich?
Well, there are obviously a number of important variables here, and I was reminded at the planning board meeting this morning that this whole project passed by all of 1 vote at town meeting this year. Was it 2
Well,
votes?
2.
I'm sorry, 2 votes. I was worried there that I was
Or
close.
something, yeah.
Close or something.
Yeah. I do think we need a deliverable. And if we separate the 2, I think we do get that deliverable. We do get the sign up. There'd be roughly 124,000 we had not spent.
That's right.
And then we go from there. We see what comes up with the engineering work. Any bids we get. See what the town wants to do. I mean, the town might decide the sign is it. We don't, we just encumber the money for the time being.
Okay.
So that's my general look
All
at
right.
it. We need a deliverable.
Okay, so you're agreeing with Tom on the proposal to go ahead with the sign portion of this? Okay, I've tried Margaret a couple of times to put it on the record, but I tend to agree with Rich. So I think if a motion is made, we will vote on it in perhaps absence. So
I so move.
I will second that motion. All in favor? Aye. We'll go ahead with the sign.
Thank you.
All right.
great.
And we'll talk about the other issue later.
I just wanted to make sure Margaret had some input,
Yeah,
but as
no.
long as Rich and I are agreed to it.
Do we need to talk about the use of the money for more engineering work? And the other.
We'll put that on the agenda for next week and have all 3 of the selectmen here to have that conversation. It's not anything that we need to do tomorrow, but,
Right.
so we just need to concentrate on the sign right now. Let's get it done.
Yeah, 'cause that's
And
8
then-
weeks out, right?
that's
before we even see it,
Yes.
so.
Do we have anything else on our agenda?
No.
No,
there's-
very hesitant, no.
No, I think it can wait till next
Okay.
Wednesday.
Great. Anyone else privileged before you? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
I will second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming out.
I don't vote.
Thank you.
Do not put me down.
Yeah, I see.
Next meeting is next Thursday.